Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2020 and the second part of this experiment where we're taking a look at what would happen if a non-league team had the perfect stadium and facilities. So we can see when we left off last time they had managed to get promoted up into League 2, a nice little rise here in their first season. In 4th, 1st, 17th, and then 1st again. So that's 2 titles in a row. Most recently, finishing in 13th place in League 2. They've got Alex Neil in charge. A decent team. Still got the same stadium, although they are in the process of moving to a new stadium. Apparently with 180,000 capacity, which I will be surprised at. Apparently they can go higher than that, people were saying in the comments, but I've not seen it, and I'm not sure it's actually going to work out that way. But we will find out, probably in this episode. One of the comments also suggested that what we could do is just look at their young players, maybe of high value, and then if we just click the start editing button, you can see their, well, not there, but the if we start having a look at their attribute details, you can see that their potential ability is listed here as 103. Now, about 160 and above would be a world-class player. 150, probably a good top-tier player. So he is a little bit of a way off that. Next one down, Steve Bailey. If we have a look at his attribute details, he comes in at 151. So there we go. He is a man who could go on to be a very good player in the Premier League or Championship. Next player down, quick look at his attribute details. 136, bit lower down there. He's not probably not going to cut the mustard as much. Giles Webb, next one. And if we just have a look at his attribute details, 135 again. So they've got one top quality potential player. Was it Steve Bailey, I think it was? He does have very nice attributes there. Already at 80, 151 potential ability. He looks like he could be a top quality player. It's just that low finishing letting him down. But you can trade him up on that and he could well become a much bigger player. Just want to have a look at this bid here. Leeds and Southampton both putting in transfer bids for him, so he could be leaving anyway. But that is likely to be what happens with their excellent youth facilities, youth recruitment. They'll bring these good players in, but they'll just be poached by the bigger teams until they get higher up that league table and manage to hold on to their best players. But we can have a look in the future on the shortlist. Just look at players who were trained at Hemel Hempstead, and it will quickly find all of the best players in the game that have come through their youth system. Now today, what we're going to do is go 10 years into the future, and then we will see how the club are getting on, if they've managed to make it to the Premier League and maybe win some top-tier silverware, and we'll also have a look at some of those youth prospects and see how they're getting on as well. We'll also look at their facilities, see where they are, and maybe we might need to boost things back up to the full amount in time for the next episode. Next episode will be the final one, so do make sure you're subscribed down below if you aren't already, and drop a like on the video if you're enjoying this experiment. But let's jump forward now 10 years and see how Hemel Hempstead have got on. Well, we are now 10 years into the future. This is how it looked when we left off. The following season, pretty rough start to their time in League 2. Only getting that one win in the first month and then one win in the second month as well, which isn't ideal. But then their form does pick up quite a bit, both in the league and in the cup, as they go through to the FA Cup second round and lose to Lincoln City 2-1. But good form through the league, getting patches of wins now as they head into the back end, and they actually make it to the playoffs of League 2. They win the first one 2-0 away from home against Wrexham, and then they lose 2-1 at home, but it's enough to take them through in extra time. Chris Jackson becomes a club legend with the winning goal that takes them to Wembley, and in the final they do beat Burton Albion 2-1, and a great win there. Josh Galbraith and then Demalio, Brown, Sterling getting the goals for them in front of 90,000 fans at Wembley, a sold out Wembley. Apparently 88,000 of them were away fans. Burton Albion not very well represented in that game. But it does mean that despite their 4th place finish in this league campaign, a surprising 4th place finish given how poor this form was, they managed to get promoted into League 1. So this just the second season in. You can see probably a better start than last season. A few more defeats creeping in there though. They're into the EFL Trophy second round, but then lose to Forest Green 2-1. And then the defeats do start to really pile on. They are getting a significant number of victories in there, though, so it's not terrible, but it's not enough. They finish in 22nd place in that campaign and are relegated back down to League Two. But a very nice performance kicking off the season with a good number of wins, only one defeat in their first 6. And then they really start to string together the wins after that. Good number of draws in there. Through to the FA Cup third round against Charlton. They make it through to the fourth round, but are beaten 3-0 inside 12 minutes by West Ham at the London Stadium. But very good league form in League Two. Not enough to get them promoted, though. I think they finished 9th in that campaign. The following season, a rougher start to the season. Not many defeats, though. A lot of draws, and then they do start to patch together a nice win streak. Terrible time through December, out of the EFL Trophy South in the second round. But through in the FA Cup, 2-1 win over Coventry is huge. They then lose 3-0 away from home to Chelsea. But you can see 2 goals in a minute, absolutely sinking their hopes there. But a fantastic run of form. After this terrible December, they really patched together a good run of results. And they make it into the playoffs again, but lose 1-1 during the first leg and then lose 2-0 in the second leg against Wrexham. So they remain in League Two for another year. But as you can see, things get off to a much better start this time around. Huge number of wins. That one defeat here against Newport County. And then they don't lose again until December. They also go out the EFL Trophy second round again. Out of the FA Cup fourth round to Manchester City. They were leading away from home until Josh Boxer and Kylian Mbappe scored late on to turn it around and give Man City the win. But what a fantastic cup tie that would have been. And their league form absolutely sensational as they do secure promotion back into League One. And they continue that great form. Look at how well they're performing here. They do go out the EFL Trophy, not a surprise there. Out the FA Cup in the first round. Poor in a form in December, but they maintain a lot of victories. They make it to the playoffs, a 1-0 win over Forest Green, followed up by a 3-1 win at home to send them to Wembley again, and they get their second successive promotion, this time on penalties, to get them up into the Championship. A fantastic job there. 90,000 fans at Wembley watching them on, and it means they're into the Championship. 2 consecutive promotions after really struggling in League Two, and this campaign goes pretty well as well. There's a few defeats here at the end of their first month, but then they get on the horse again before falling off it quite dramatically through the end of November up until February, and even then they only get 1 win in February. A nice run of results so from March, probably a new manager, and they do end with a strong finish to their season. The following year, again, still in the Championship, a little bit intermittent form, not too many defeats though, still continuing, very traffic lighty, and then red, green, right to the end of the season. It's just not enough as they finish, I think, in 9th again that year. And then the following year, they do manage to win the Friendly Cup. Not that important, but their league form, not terrible. They're into the FA Cup fourth round again, but lose to Blackburn this time. And then terrible run of form from February onwards to the end of the season. I mean, they miss out on the playoffs again. And then the following year, a much better time of it at the start. Rough patch followed up by good form. Rough patch followed up by good form. It's a consistent pattern. But they do manage to sneak into the playoffs. I think they actually finished 3rd in this season. And they lose 2-1 away from home in the first leg. And then a 2-2 draw at home. Not enough for them as they fail to make it into the final. And unfortunately, they are still in the Championship despite finishing in 3rd place, which is a really good place to be. Only 3 points away from the promised land of the Premier League. It was so close for them, but they were only 5 points into the playoffs. It was such a tight season here, right across the board, but they did manage to make it up into the playoffs, but couldn't make it out of the league. So if we have a look at the previous years, you can see they finished down in 17th place, a terrible season that time round. The year before that, 9th place, and the year before that, 9th place again, so 2 9th place finishes. Before that, they were down in League One, and if we just have a look at this season, we can see they did end up finishing, I think I've gone too far there. You can see here, they finished in 3rd place, going up, promoted in the automatic, in playoff. Yeah, they won the playoff final, didn't they? And then the year before that, they were also down in the other league, so they only had 1 year in that league table. If we have a quick look here, I do lose track of these seasons quite quickly, but you can see they finished as champions, 18 points clear of Doncaster. A very nice performance. So they've done very well. You can see the performance up the league table here. We started down here when they just finished 16th, having been in this league for a few years. Then 4th, 1st, got promoted. 17th, 1st, got promoted. 13th, 4th, got promoted, relegated. Couple of years in the wilderness and League 2 before 2 consecutive promotions got them up into the Championship, and they were 3 points away from being promoted to the Premier League in the most recent season. So having a look at this transfer history over the years, you can see they have spent a significant amount of money now. The tap's really opening up, making a net profit when we left off before, but then £6.5 million spent, £30 million spent in 25-26. This would have been when they just got into League 1, I think. They were relegated though, which meant to a net outflow of about 3 million, and then the following season 5 million spent, net outflow of 3 million again, then 17 million spent in this season here, huge amount of money going out, followed up by 51 million pounds being spent. Almari, their biggest transfer, the Algerian, signed from Derby County for 22 million, and he hasn't exactly been an excellent bargain, but quite a good spread of cash, not all going on one player. The following year, £65 million spent in the 31-32 season. 25 million on Morgan Morton from Man City, a central midfielder. He's not retained that value, and he's not set the world on fire either. He's up at about that 7.0 rating, but it's not quite good enough for the amount of money they've spent on him. It's such a big part of the budget. And the following year, just 17, followed by 33.5, but 26 million leaving the club. And that takes us up to the most recent season. So that's how their money has been spent, but it's been quite steady, really. And if we have a look at the club details, you can see in their finances they have 122 million. Is it 122 million? No, that is 12.2 million pounds in the bank balance. Transfer budget not looking too bad, but their facilities, they have moved to their new stadium, and like I said, 113,000 fans, not the 180 that it was promised, which is a little bit disappointing, but it does seem to have some expansion capacity, so maybe they can get this up to that 180,000. Maybe that's what they were talking about. Stadium condition of 1. It is starting to depreciate from the 0. Training facilities and youth facilities both knocked down though. So what we could do is increase their fan base, which is now down at a minimum attendance of 75,000 instead of 150,000. We could boost that up to make sure they keep getting the gate receipts. We could also boost these facilities back up, give them their roof back. They moved to a stadium without a roof. And just make sure that they do have the best things that they need, because they would have wasted a huge amount of money on this new stadium. In fact, if we go and have a look, if I make myself manager of Hemel Hempstead, we can have a look if they've got debt as a result of that transfer, or not transfer, but move to their new stadium. So get past this screen. There we go. If we look at their finances, which is the key really, you can see they had all this money a few years ago, which has dropped off a cliff, and they're now just bouncing around ever since they made the stadium move, I would guess. And their profit and loss also just not looking that great anymore. Income of 2 million, expenditure of 4 million. Last season, 38 million from players sold, 66 million from gate receipts, so that's the key figure. But I just feel like this isn't quite where it should be because of that move to the new stadium. You can see 35 million spent here on player expenditure. Wages, not too bad about that, but you can see financial fair play, can't lose more than 50 million. They're projected to make a profit of 137 million though. Confident that they'll pass it. No wage cap at the minute. And no debt actually, so I don't know what that new stadium is. They must have just paid for it out of cash because they've got no debt whatsoever. They're not doing well for sponsors, but they are projected to make their money back. So weird finances, it has to be said. I don't know what has happened to their money. Total income last season was 138 million. There's still a lot of money coming in, and 128 million spent on expenses. Don't know what that was. That must have been a player being bought. But yeah, I'm not sure what happened to that stadium money. If we have a look at maybe the club info and have a look at their landmarks, we might get some sort of indication here as to what happened. So FA Trophy winners, youth category lowered, new chairman took over, and then they moved to their new stadium in 2032. So yeah, I'm not really sure what has gone on here, but it has changed the dynamics of the experiment a little bit. Now if we have a quick look at their development centre and their under-18s, Peter Crouch still the under-18s manager, but you can see Steve Baker here, a good young prospect. If we look at his attributes, 118, that's not very good. He's nearly at full capacity already. He does look decent, but that potential ability a little bit misleading on him. If we have a look at Ryan Brooks, I think his name was, again 115, it's just not quite good enough. Lee Mannion, is he any better? He comes out at 121, a little bit better, but nothing like the 150 we saw before. Connor Smith, look at his attribute details, 116 on him. So they're not quite getting the same quality of youth prospect come through, unless this Jack Street is any good. He looked like he might be. He comes out, no, 112 again. So it looks like that has diminished as well, which isn't ideal. But I won't have a look at the youth prospects just yet. I think that will be one for the next final part, where we'll do that all in big one go and see where the best players have ended up. I am extremely tempted to increase all the facilities back to their maximum level, which is where that was the original idea of this experiment. And just because they built a new stadium for no reason whatsoever, I don't know why that should be changed. I think we should put that back up to the maximum amounts. But let me know in the comments what you think about that suggestion. And do drop a like on the video if you're looking forward to that final part, which should be out tomorrow. Make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss it. And until next time, see ya.